Hi there, welcome to Flaming Star Podfics. Today we will be reading The Wedding Planner by Velvetstrega on AO3. You can find the link to the story in the description. This is a My Hero Academia alt universe story featuring Katsuki Bakugou and Izuku Midoriya as the main ship. Please note that the story is rated E for explicit, and there will be some explicit sexual content. The story has 4 chapters. Here is the summary. Katsuki Bakugou is being forced to marry Nejire Hado as a family obligation, but the thought of marrying someone he doesn't love makes him sick. Then he meets the wedding planner, Izuku Midoriya. Katsuki decides immediately that he wants him, and it doesn't take that much convincing to get Izuku to go out with him. Izuku must then deal with a jealous Katsuki when a certain musician tries to get with Izuku. This is Chapter 1. "I need you to go and show your face, Katsuki," Mitsuki growled. "Do you want to look like an ass on your wedding day?" Mitsuki Bakugou glared at her son, who couldn't care less what he looked like on his wedding day. He slammed his hand on the table. "That's just the point, old hag. I don't want to look any way on my wedding day. I don't want a wedding day." Katsuki scowled at his mother. She just wasn't getting it. "When are you going to get it through your thick skull that I broke up with her for a reason?" Mitsuki placed a cup of tea in front of her son, daintily, as if they weren't in the middle of a skirmish. But then, skirmishing was their way of life. "You tried to break up with her. Then you made up." "No, you made up. You went behind my back and patched things up. I don't fucking want this." Katsuki thought he saw a shade of sympathy flicker across his mother's eyes. Then it was gone. "I know, Katsuki, I know. But you know that we need to make nice with the Hado family. We've been over this so many times. If our families combine, it's to our mutual benefit. Both companies will grow exponentially," Mitsuki said, as if she was just repeating a line from a script. "Besides, Nejire is a nice girl, and you need to settle down. You're not getting any younger." "Mom, I'm 26. That's hardly old." Mitsuki looked at her son, lips pursed in frustration. "Believe me, you'll be old before you know it, and—" "You mean like you?" Katsuki shot back with a sneer. Mitsuki's lips drew into a fine line. "And if you don't pick someone soon," she continued through gritted teeth, "you'll find yourself alone. Nejire's as good as anyone." Bile rose in Katsuki's throat, and he looked at her in disbelief. "Do you hear yourself, old hag? You want me to marry someone, to say that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with someone I don't love, just because she's as good as anyone? Didn't you and Dad marry for love? Well, don't I deserve the same thing?" He jumped out of his seat and began pacing. The furrow of Mitsuki's brow softened. "What happened, baby? You two were getting on so well. You used to be so good together. I thought you loved her." I I did." He stopped pacing and stared at the floor. "I don't anymore." Mitsuki stared into her cup of tea and seemed to ponder something. "Look, I understand. I really do. But this is important. Please give it a try. Maybe we can work something out and have the marriage annulled later." Katsuki threw his head back and sighed. Mitsuki got up and went to him. She put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Go to the banquet hall and do what you need to do. We'll talk more later." She squeezed his arm and left the room. For the first time since he was 5 years old, Katsuki felt like crying. His younger self had wanted to cry because he'd failed to save a cat from being hit by a car. He'd been devastated and stared at the body of the poor creature in the middle of the street for a minute until he couldn't stand it anymore, then ran home, unable to keep himself from bawling. He didn't want anyone to see him cry. He was prideful even then. Now tears threatened to escape once again, except that this time he was failing to save himself from a commitment he didn't want to a person he didn't want, save himself from compromising himself for the sake of capitalism, from having to face someone whom he didn't care about and having to show her that she meant something very different to him than he meant to her. Dejected and with a sense of dread, Katsuki grabbed his jacket and his keys and left to go to the wedding venue. Everything went by in a blur for Katsuki. Every detail that they were supposed to be working out together as a couple was nonsense and gibberish. "So which do you like, Kat? The salmon or the halibut?" Nejire asked. She patted Katsuki's forearm to get his attention. "Kat? Which one?" Katsuki was brought out of his fog and looked at the table. Multiple dishes were laid out in front of them, and he couldn't give a flying fucking squirrel's ass about any of it. Whatever you want. I don't care." Nejire remained quiet for a moment before speaking. "Kat, what's going on? You're being weird." A sickening roiling began in Katsuki's gut, one that he was sure had nothing to do with the shrimp etouffee or the tortellini and fennel sauce they tasted before the fish and the chicken and the beef. "I'm not feeling well. I need the restroom." He got up hastily, without even a glance at Nejire. He made his way across the dining room of the exclusive banquet hall and out into the anteroom, which, if Katsuki remembered correctly, would be where the cocktail hour would be. The whole thing was feeling more and more like a boulder on his back. His chest was tight, and he was breathing with more difficulty than he'd had a few minutes earlier. He found a sofa at the far end of the room and sat. He closed his eyes as he tried to regulate his breathing. It was getting hot, and he felt his back and chest becoming damp. Maybe if he got some air. He opened his eyes and was about to stand when he saw someone at the other end of the long room. A man stood clutching a clipboard with his left hand and a phone with his right. He stared intently at the phone while his fingers flew busily across the screen. The man looked to be more or less the same age as Katsuki. His moss-colored hair was full and curly, but neatly combed into a coif. He wore a dark green button-down shirt, a charcoal gray vest and matching slacks, and shiny black shoes. He was slender, but the man's shirt hugged his arms and torso, and Katsuki could see that he worked out. For some reason, Katsuki's breathing calmed down. Intrigued, he stood and slowly made his way over to the man. As he got closer, the man finished whatever he was doing on his phone and looked down at the sofa in front of him. On the sofa's surface were photos of various flowers and bouquets, as well as a binder that presumably held the photos. The man scanned the various pictures, then wrote something down on his clipboard. "That looks interesting," Katsuki lied. It didn't, but he needed something to start a conversation. The man looked at him, and Katsuki's breath hitched. The man had eyes the color of tourmalines. Maybe it was the lights in there, but they sparkled brightly, just like the gem. A spray of freckles dusted across his nose and the tops of his cheeks. He was gorgeous, and Katsuki felt a distinct flutter low in his belly. Then, when the man smiled, Katsuki knew that the masters of the universe had manipulated all time and space, had spun him around, and dropped him on his ass. "Yeah, I'm trying to narrow down some flowers for the bride in there to choose," the man said. "Are you involved with the Bakugou Hado wedding?" Katsuki wanted so badly to say no, but he didn't want to disrespect Nejire that way, even if he was a dick for trying to call off the wedding. "I'm sort of the groom," he mumbled. "Oh, you're Katsuki Bakugou. It's nice to finally meet you." He held out his hand. "I'm Izuku Midoriya, the wedding planner." The wedding planner. Oh, the irony. This beautiful man who had nearly stopped his heart was planning the wedding that Katsuki wanted nothing to do with. The universe had a fucked up sense of humor. Katsuki took his hand and felt the smooth skin along Izuku's palm. Like some chivalrous knight, he had the urge to kiss it. "Nice to meet you," he said softly. "It's nice to see a groom involved in the planning. So many grooms can't be bothered, and they leave everything to the brides. Props to you for being involved." Izuku's smile reached his eyes and crinkled their corners. "Please help me," Katsuki wanted to say. "Run away with me." Right." Katsuki ran his fingers through his hair as he looked away in shame. When he looked back, Izuku had a calculating look, as if trying to work something out. "Is there something wrong? Problems with the arrangements? Let me know and I'll see if I can fix it." "Fix it?" "Yes, I mean, it is my job." Izuku brought the clipboard up to his chest and hugged it. "No, I mean..." Katsuki sat on the couch and held his head in his hand. His leg bounced up and down nervously, and he felt lightheaded. Hey, are you okay? Izuku dropped into the seat next to him and put his clipboard aside. Are you nervous? It's normal to get nervous planning your wedding. It makes it really real, you know? And some people can't handle it. He put a reassuring hand on Katsuki's back. Katsuki picked his head up and took a few deep breaths. When his heart stopped racing, he spoke. You don't understand. I don't want this, he whispered hoarsely. I don't want any of this. Izuku looked around, then stood, bringing Katsuki up with him. Come on, let's get some air. He guided Katsuki outside and down a path to a gazebo overlooking a well-manicured lawn. Surrounding the lawn were hedges of flowers and various shrubs, making for a charming and romantic backdrop for outdoor ceremonies. It felt like mockery. Everywhere Katsuki looked, there was some sort of reminder of what he was running away from. It was starting to piss him off. Once Izuku and Katsuki settled on a bench in the gazebo, he said, Now tell me, what's the problem? Katsuki glanced at him. Are you a therapist now, too? A playful grin graced Izuku's pretty face. He had a beautiful mouth, and Katsuki wanted to. You'd be surprised at the hats I have to wear in this job and how often I have to talk down an antsy groom from the ledge or a bridezilla from going completely into dictator mode. Katsuki looked away. Izuku's angelic face was distracting him from the disaster that required his attention right now. I don't want to get married. Not to her, anyway. Then why are you? Katsuki sighed. It's a family thing. My family, her family. We used to go out, but are you even in love with her? Izuku's voice was not judgmental. Rather, it was compassionate. I was. Once. At least I thought I was. We were compatible. We had fun. She's a good person. And the sex was good. Izuku looked away at that, a pink hue coloring his cheeks. Then what happened? Honestly, I don't know. I woke up one day and everything was different. The idea of spending the rest of my life with her made me break out into a cold sweat. He looked up and closed his eyes. I can't go through with it. And yet, here you are. Yeah, here I am. Look, Mr. Bakugou, call me Katsuki. Katsuki, I'm not sure what you want to hear, but I do know that you need to be honest with her. If you don't love her and don't want to be married to her, she has to know, and you have a right to make yourself happy, too. A calm came over Katsuki then. He'd already known what he needed to do, but the pressure from his mother had clouded his judgment. Hearing his own thoughts come out of a stranger's mouth had a fortifying effect. He nodded and stood. Yeah, I know. Thanks, I needed to hear that. Sorry, though. It looks like you're going to be down one job. Katsuki walked back to the main building, determined to be strong and make the decision that he knew in his heart was right. As he passed the hibiscus and gardenia bushes and the stone fountain in the shape of two lovebirds cuddling, he had one final thought. And I'm coming back for you.